Welcome back to the FTN NFL Draft Team Preview Series. I'm your host, Mike Randle, Chief Content Officer here at FTN. Follow me on Twitter at Randle Randle. We continue our mission to preview each and every one of the 32 NFL teams as we get ready for what should be a national holiday next Thursday, the NFL Draft. And we are extremely blessed to have the great DJ Bien-Aime in with us here, the Houston Texans reporter for ESPN. He just does fantastic work. I mean, talk about the Texans. We need his insight. Follow him on Twitter at DJ Bien-Aime. DJ, thank you so much for a few minutes. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. A little tired, a little drowsy, but I'm bringing the energy. I'm here. Let's talk some Texans. There's a lot to discuss.
I know why you're tired, because you must be running around here on fumes getting ready for next Thursday. So here's the question. Is it going to be your quarterback? If so, do you have any insight? I mean, we've heard Peter Schrager came out on NFL.com, put out his mock draft, talking about how they may trade down. They're not going after quarterback. My opinion, DJ, I don't see how in this division, where really three teams need a signal caller at this point, I don't see how they pass on a quarterback here, but maybe it's not going to be a two. Maybe they're going to trade down. What are you hearing here? We're not going to bury the lead. Talk to me about that number 2 overall pick.
Yeah, I think they're open to business, as Nico said on Monday, to take calls on the number 2 overall pick to see if they can get a deal, because it's quite clear that they viewed Bryce in a separate tier compared to the rest of the quarterbacks, and understandably so. Bryce looks like the most NFL ready to go right now with the least amount of questions, because in reality, the only question you really have is about his size. So, obviously you have CJ Will and Anthony Richardson. So the question is, do you trade down and still stay within that range, get an extra pick, and then get a quarterback that, because again, if you view C.J. Stroud and Will Levis in the same bucket, then if you could trade down and get a pick and one of them is still available, in your eyes as a general manager, that's still a win. I don't know. I don't believe they'll trade down, because in reality, none of these quarterbacks are viewed as got to trade up and get, outside of obviously Bryce, right? So, like I said, and there's enough buzz around the league where people don't even think they'll take a quarterback at 2. So a lot of teams will probably stay put. So what you would need to get the value in trading down, I don't really envision a team given what's required to trade up to get the equal value. So I think they'll probably stay put. And in my opinion, I think they'll still take a quarterback. I just can't imagine a scenario where they just run it back with Davis Mills and Case Keenum. Even if they say they stay at 2 or they trade down, I just can't see a scenario where they run it back with Case Keenum, Davis Mills, and EJ Perry. Davis Mills led the league in interceptions last year. Case Keenum has only started 2 games since, I believe, 2019. And EJ Perry was an undrafted free agent from last draft. So it's just going to be super hard to convince the owners to pass on a quarterback, especially the fact that Nick Caserio, since he's been a Texan GM, their record is 7-26-1. And if they pass on a quarterback and they're going to try to win with defense and ball control, things of that nature, and let's say they finish with 4 wins or 5 wins, he would have either 11 or 12 wins in 3 seasons, and that could lead to job being in jeopardy.
Absolutely. And I was talking to the Carolina beat reporter Mike Kay earlier today. He was saying that when the Panthers traded up, he thinks it was sort of open-ended. They weren't sure. So basically you're saying that the Texans, however, focused on Bryce. They had Bryce clear above the other quarterbacks. And now, because it looks like, at least by the odds, that Bryce Young is going first, they're a little more open-minded here, because the other 3 maybe are closer together than when they had Bryce.
Indeed. Yeah, no, Bryce was for sure their number 1 guy. So the fact that he might not be there is why now you start to hear a little bit of buzz about them possibly not drafting a quarterback at 2, things of that nature. So that's kind of where they stand right now. But again, I believe that they'll have, it's just hard to see them passing on a quarterback to run it back with Davis Mills, Case Keenum, and EJ Perry. Last season, I covered last season when I was at the games, by week 8, the stadium was half empty. At the end of the day, this is a business, and that's how owners look at it. So if you're not putting a good, exciting product on the field that has fans tuned in, that makes them want to spend their money, it's going to be really hard to convince the owners, hey, we're going to pass on the quarterback, try again next year. Because again, even let's say you try again next year and you win 4 or 5 games, you're going to be out of the top 2 slots. And that means you can't get Drake May or Caleb Williams.
Yep. And what they did this year, the Texans, is it seems like they've surrounded the offense with some explosive players here to support whoever the quarterback is. Talk to me about Dameon Pierce. He's injured, but certainly had a fantastic year last year. Devin Singletary came in. Nico Collins will be coming back. Robert Woods came over. Talk about the offensive weapons here that will be there for whatever quarterback they select.
Yeah, I mean, you got Dameon Pierce, who was seventh in the NFL in rushing before he got hurt in Week 14 against the Dallas Cowboys. In reality, he actually could have came back, but they shut him down because it was what it was at that point in the season. But I think Dameon Pierce can prove to be a top 10 running back this year. He played like one last year on an offense that couldn't really pass the ball very effectively. Obviously, Nico Collins, big body threat that can get down the field and be that 50-50 jump ball contested type receiver that can be a quarterback friendly receiver for a young guy that comes in. You have Robert Woods, obviously veteran, and he's experienced in this system, having played in LA with Sean McVay. They run the same system that Bobby Slowick, the Texan offensive coordinator, will run. So you have those pieces. Obviously, you got to add more. I would say hopefully that at 12 they can go get a guy like JSN from out of Ohio State, just to add more talent, because you can never be short on talent at the receivers. At the receiver spot. And obviously they got Dalton Schultz at tight end, who was top 10 in all tight end categories dating back from 2020 till 2022, top 10 in yards, receptions, and touchdowns. So there's some pieces, and obviously I forgot to mention they have a really good duo in Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard at the tackle position. Laramie Tunsil just got the big bag, highest paid tackle in the NFL. Titus Howard played extremely well. According to ESPN, Titus and Laramie Tunsil, the tackle duo, allowed us to tie for the second fewest amount allowed sacks in the entire NFL. Then you bring on Shaq Mason. I believe he only allowed 3 sacks last year, which is an upgrade from AJ Cann, who I believe allowed a little bit more. So there are pieces to work with on the offense. It's not completely dreadful. There wouldn't be a quarterback coming in that's working with very little. There's a lot to work with.
Now let's look at defense. Of course, new head coach Lovie Smith out, DeMeco Ryans in. Defense is going to be a focus here. Certainly want to improve the rush defense that they had last year. DJ struggled there a little bit, but let's talk about free agency moves and then potential spots in the draft. We know about those 2 first-round picks here. Could be offense, but they have to fortify that defense. What do you think is the best path going forward there for the Houston Texans defense?
Yeah, they brought in DeMeco Ryans, so automatically that's going to give the defense a little bit of a boost. Obviously, they have a really good really talented secondary. You have Steven Nelson, who played at a very good level last year. You have Derek Stingley, who's talented. Missed some games last year due to a hamstring, but some of that was also because they shut him down. Jalen Petrie, I think one of 5 NFL players ever to have 150 tackles and 5 interceptions, and he did that as a rookie. So he's only going to get better. On a defensive line, you have Jerry Hughes, who had 9 sacks. You bring in Sheldon Rankins at the tackle, who for the Jets, when he was on the field, apparently that the rush defense was even better. They held running backs to about under 4 yards per carry when he was on the field, and when he wasn't off the field, the per yard carry yardage went up. So I would say they just need to address the linebacker spot, because that was one of the bigger issues last year, was the fact that, because they, as you mentioned, they had a porous run defense. They allowed the 6th most rushing yards in an entire season in NFL history. So I would say probably have to improve the linebacker spot and add at the D-line spot. You can never have enough D linemen, and obviously you can get linebackers later on in the draft, but I would say if you don't go receiver at 12, go D-line at 12, and go D-line at 12 just to improve that unit, because yes, you have Jerry, you got Sheldon Rankins. You have Jonathan Gennard, who had 8 sacks in 12 games in 2021, was injured last year, but you can just add to that to give the depth that's required. So, yeah.
Last question, sir. We'll get you out of here, DJ. Great stuff as always. Last 3 years, you mentioned it with Houston, 4-12, 4-13, 3-13-1. So we're looking this year. What would be successful for the Texan fans? Get that quarterback in place, improve the team. What would be a record here that you would say would be a step forward for the GM, step forward for the team, and really set them up for 2024?
Yeah, so I would say, get that quarterback of the future and find a way to win 6 games. I mean, you're going to be in AFC South, so they're actually shockingly pretty good in AFC South. I mean, last year I think they finished 3-2-1, something like that. They beat everybody in the division. They beat the Jags, Titans, and they beat the Colts, and they tied with the Colts, and obviously they lost to the Jags, lost to the Titans. But they're really competitive within the division. So if they can find a way to be around that same barometer and then be able to steal 3 other wins. If you go 6-11, first year under DeMeco Ryans, rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, the sky is only the limit. The sky's the limit because they're gonna have a lot of cap space next year, so they can end up doing something like what the Chicago Bears did this past offseason, where they were able to spend a lot of money. What the Jags did in 2022, where they spent a lot of money. What the Patriots did in 2021, where they spent a lot of money, or the Dolphins did in 2020, where they spent a lot of money. And all of those teams were able to, I believe, get to at least 9 wins. A couple made the playoffs. The Dolphins missed the playoffs by 1 game against the Buffalo Bills, where they lost in week 17. But it's been proven that if you spend money in free agency, you will get a return on your investment immediately. So if they can get to that 6-win mark, that'll be a success. And then next year, spend some money, make some trades, improve the roster, add more talent, and now you can really be cooking in 2024. Because we see it every year where one team is in the basement, and then boom, they're in the playoffs.
Absolutely so with Jacksonville as well. Folks, cooking with the Houston Texans is DJ Bien-Aime. Follow him on Twitter, DJ Bien-Aime, Bienaime. Does amazing work. Houston Texans reporter for ESPN. I know you're on fumes, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait for a week from now when that first domino falls and everything falls into place. Thank you so much for a few minutes here. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.